Right. So, good morning. And today we are going to talk about, we're going to jump right into chapter 2, which does nothing but build off of chapter 1. We're still talking about first line management and what a first line manager is expected to do and how to get there. And once you get there, what makes you a successful first line manager. So, before we get going on that too much, we talked about some review things in the last class. So let's do a little turbo real fast, just run through. A pi, what is A? P. I. E. Everybody clear on that stuff from the previous classes, okay? And we know the difference between goals and objectives, correct? Which one is the big picture? Okay, and objectives, like we say, are just the stepping stones. And then there's specific ways that we're supposed to write our objectives that we've gone over in the other classes as well. Different places kind of write objectives differently, but by rule, your goal is to kind of write them the way we've talked about in class, you know, with the conditions and the criteria. And, you know, this is when you do it, this is what we're doing, and how well did you do it, you know, is what we're looking for in every case. Something you can check off is something that you want for an objective, basically. Tell me some places that recreation therapists can work. Schools? Mm-hmm. Yes. Assisted living. Military is one that we haven't talked about much, but it's there. Community settings like OPC. I worked for the Park Commission and did recreation therapy for older adults there. So there's a lot, you know, tons of different places. And like we said, it's growing. A lot more opportunity for people that are wanting to find jobs in the field. Okay, that was, what else can we go over from last time since it builds on it? Okay, it talks a lot. We talked in the first chapter about there being a rapid change in healthcare. What do you guys think might be one of the biggest factors in how healthcare services are provided? What could cause change in what we do? Same thing happens in everyday life as well, this change. The patients, that's one thing, absolutely. The patients are different, and that depends on what setting you're in. That matters a lot also. What I was looking for, and both of those are correct, they're totally right. Technology, think about how technology changes constantly, and you know, whether it's how we keep up with records or whether it's what sort of treatment we're able to give. Technology plays a big role in the change that's going on, not just in healthcare, but in our world in general right now. Where do you think that the majority of CTRS individuals work in the U.S.? What setting? Would you say community, park and rec, outpatient treatment centers, hospitals, skilled care centers, residential centers? Anybody else? Are we all going to go residential? Y'all going to jump on that boat? Somebody get another boat. Community? Somebody get another boat. Hospitals, I heard that, not him for sure. hospitals is the most common. Probably because there's, like I say, the one here in Oxford does not have it. It's not huge here in this area yet. I hope that that's something that will change. But hospitals are the #1 place where CTRSs are employed in the U.S. So at this point, I'm going to change to, we're going to go on to Chapter 2. So I will share the screen and hopefully it will change up there. Good deal. And so still good. So now we're talking about, we talked last class about first line managers and what they do, who they're over. Now we move into how do you, when you become a first line manager, what do you need to know? How do you get from a seasonal worker to a first line manager? And we'll just run through these. You have access to these. I can tell you this also. I uploaded a lot of information on the Blackboard because I wanted it to be as, number one, I didn't know how the semester was going to pan out, whether we were going to be here every time, and I hope that we continue to be. But I wanted to give you plenty of materials to help you understand in case I wasn't able to be with you every time. So the best way to prepare for this class going through is to actually read the chapters. I know that is not fun, but at this point you'll get it. Read the chapters and look over those notes. The second portion that I put for each chapter on there, it has questions, review questions. It has terms from the chapters. If you can know the terms and be able to answer the questions from those reviews, then you're getting what you need to out of these chapters for the most part. So management is very simply put on here as just getting things done through other people. And that's a simple way that I would think of it as well too. If you're managing, you are helping to put everybody in the same direction for a common goal to get things done. So as a therapeutic recreation manager, you're looking at coordinating is a big word on here. You want to coordinate your resources effectively, efficiently, and accomplish the goals of an organization through high quality, safe services that satisfy consumer client needs. So basically, you are doing things as your employer wants them to be done. You're getting things done the way they want it, effectively, efficiently, and safely, while keeping clients happy. So yeah, there's not much to it at all. Actually, this is a difficult phase of management because you're not only having to please the higher uppers in your specific employment setting, but you're the one that is going to still be dealing directly with clients that may or may not be happy with the services that they're receiving. So you're kind of dealing with your employees, the clients, and the people that are above you on the chain of managers. But you'll get past that. If you do a good job in this setting, you'll move to another level and be able to knock some of that out. So as a manager, you've got responsibilities, which, a lot of this is kind of a common sense chapter in a lot of ways. So just consider this review. Your responsibility is basically what area of the organization which you have control over. Okay, that's your responsibility, just your specific area. Authority, the right to exercise influence, give directives, or make certain decisions. So if you've got authority, you have the choice to, you have to make choices. You have to give directions to employees that are under you. And sometimes you have to exercise influence, which may be in the form of, say, motivation, or discipline to a degree if someone is not performing appropriately. Okay, I know this is going to be extremely difficult for you guys to follow. This is a very intricate, just kidding. 3 levels of management: first line, middle, and top. I think we could all, I might have you draw this on the test. I know it would be hard for you to do. If everyone can draw a triangle, I think you're in good shape, because this is pretty easy stuff. But really, it is a good way to remember that that's kind of the steps you go from, when you get to the point of top manager, that's when you're thinking of, in other companies, you're thinking executives, CEOs, chief financial officers, things like that. Whereas the first line manager is kind of the first step in moving up that ladder. So to stay, I think I went 2 slides there. Let me go back. This one is skipping one of my slides. There we go. First line manager, again, this whole chapter is about first line managers. You supervise work of non-managerial staff and volunteers. You oversee day-to-day activities of the therapeutic recreation department or work unit. That's not saying that, I've always thought that a good manager is one that is willing to get their hands dirty too. One of the best ways to lead is through example. So at this stage, especially as a first line manager, you should still be engaged with the clients as well. You shouldn't just be standing back, barking orders, watching to see what your people are doing. You should be out engaged at this point. And the best way to oversee what's happening with your recreation department is by being present, not by being in your office while all the action's going on. It would be by being present. That would also, after a while, how do you think your employees would think of you if they were out there doing all the activities every day and you were in your office on the computer the whole time they're doing it? Eventually they're going to kind of resent that a little bit, that you're not out there watching, helping, giving guidance, until there's a problem and then you have to address it. That's not good. So what do we have to do as a first line manager? You must ensure that quality services are provided that meet the needs of the consumer. This goes back to, we already covered this on another slide, basically. You do have to keep up with an ever-changing environment of standards and regulations, as it says here. Now, as a first line manager, you will have some degree of self-initiative that needs to take place, where you would, find the education, read articles, read up on departmental guidelines and things to keep up with the changing standards and regulations. Your next line of management will probably be feeding this information to you, though, and that's things that you would be sharing with your people that you supervise. You also would coordinate services with other managers in the organization. We've talked about being interdisciplinary with recreation therapy. There's managers in other departments at your facility, regardless of where it may be, that you'll have to coordinate with on your same level, basically. You will coordinate with managers of therapeutic recreation services with at other agencies in the community. So different locations, different facilities that offer, you may have combination activities. You may be able to share ideas about how you are providing services and how you could do it better by brainstorming sessions and things like that. So it's good, networking is good prior to getting a job. It's also a good thing after. You can find peers that are on the same level as you, share your stories, and be able to give each other, tips and guidance that can help both sides. Okay, this is pretty simple stuff. Again, like I say, a lot of this is kind of common sense, but it's broken down into ways that you can remember it. So functions of the first line manager. Very simply put, you have to be able to plan, organize, lead, and control what's going on. Now, there's different levels of controlling, as we all know, and we've all worked for and been around people that use different types of leadership styles. Some are more controlling than others. Some are very, I'm going to stand back, give you room to work. You've been trained, you do your job, and everybody's happy. Some people want to have their finger on everything that you're doing, and that's just different. Controlling is not necessarily meant in that way on this slide, but it's something to think about as a manager, that there's different ways of going about controlling what's going on. You just want to keep things on the right path is basically what we're talking about here. As the slides move on, it talks about the different, each one of these one at a time. So planning, that's basically just looking ahead, identifying the course of action you're going to follow in the future. Preparatory step. Again, a lot of common sense on this. Planning is obviously something that you're doing for the future. This thing is having some issues today. It is going 2 at a time. Or 3. No. Okay. So this is actually a nice slide. Some of the stuff is very, so easy that there's not much to it. This one is one that's actually useful to me when you're thinking about planning an activity. There's 6 questions. What needs to be accomplished? Number 1, what are we looking to do? What do we need to do? What's the goal? When is the deadline? When do I need to have this preparation done by? Where's it going to be done? Who's going to be responsible? How will it get done? Which is, all of the intricacies of inner workings of what's going to happen. How much time, energy, and resources are required? So that's a good slide and a good way to look at planning any sort of event, not just a therapeutic recreation event per se. So then we move on from planning to organizing, which is basically coordinating tasks and resources together. You're in charge of coordinating these to achieve the goals of the organization. You've got human resources and you've got physical resources that need to be organized. After organizing, we talked about leading as being one of the things that you must do as a first line manager. We all know what leading is. You can lead by example, you can lead by words, but however you may lead, you've got to communicate the organization's goals to the staff and influence them toward achieving those goals. Now, there's a word there that I like, and it's influencing them. It's not, and again, different people have different ways that they are motivated. You know, you have to know your employees and know what kind of makes them click, you know. Anyway, you influencing them can be a gentle way, or it could be, in some cases, if you've got an employee who is not good, who's not being there on time, who's not doing what they're supposed to do while they're on the clock, then you may have to influence them towards achieving their goals through the information that, hey, if this happens again, you'll get a verbal reprimand and it'll be put in your file. You know, you're influencing them in that way. And if you handle situations like that in the proper way, then it can be done positively and not affect morale. You know, don't call people out in front of the whole group if it's something that should be covered in private. You know, that's one thing that really matters to a lot of people, you know. And if you need to talk to someone about some sort of issue, don't call them out during the middle of a full staff meeting and say, I need to talk to you after the meeting, if everybody knows what the meeting is going to be about. That's just as bad as telling everybody, hey, we need to start doing this, when everybody knows who you're talking to. You know what I'm saying? There's certain ways. But leading, you can do it through inspiring. At the regional center right now, the resident living department out there is very short. They're having to work tons of shifts. Obviously, they should be paid, in my opinion, more than anybody on campus. The resident living department, they're the ones that are in the cottages with the staff, with the clients. They're helping to brush teeth, feed, depending on the level of disabilities, bathing. Some are adults that are in briefs. You know, they're having to change adult diapers, and they get paid less than anybody on campus. The people that are getting paid are the ones in the offices dressed like I'm dressed today, you know, and couldn't name 3 clients on campus. It's a shame. So you have to find a way as a first line leader of a group like that. How, you know, you've got to inspire them. You've got to catch them when they're doing things the right way and praise. They've started doing things, it's a small thing, but on the weekends, they are providing meals for the staff while they're there. You know, they'll call around to every cottage and ask what they want for, they'll give them a couple different restaurant options. You know, what do you want from Obie's, or would you rather have pizza? You know, they'll give them like 2 options, and they'll feed them 2 meals during their shift. When you think about it, it's a pretty big cost to do that. And I would appreciate it if somebody gave me 2 meals every time I was working. You know, it's a nice touch. That's strictly being done as a way of trying to inspire the staff, trying to motivate them to continue to do a good job because they see that they're appreciated. Seeing that you're appreciated is one of the most motivating things that there is in a work environment to me. You know, I've been in environments where I felt extremely appreciated, and I was very motivated to do a good job. I kept, you know, trying to get better. I've been in work situations where I did not feel as though I was appreciated, and that is one of the most demotivating things in the world to me, for me. You know, some people might just fly right over their head, may not even really notice, but to me, it makes me mad and makes me not want to go above and beyond. You know, that's when people say, I'm just coming into work, I'm doing my hours, and I'm going home. You know, like that's when someone doesn't feel appreciated. So to be effective, you have to do these things: inspire, coach, and motivate. Controlling. Process of establishing and implementing mechanisms or processes for ongoing evaluations to compare results with plans and goals. You're basically putting everything together in a way that you should see success by implementing what you're doing. That's a fancy way that they wrote it there on the slide, but there has to be, in order to see whether things are going the way they should, there has to be ongoing evaluation. So are your results matching with the planning that you did up front? You know, when you asked those 6 questions, did that all come together to give you the results you wanted? If not, what do we need to do different? That's kind of what you're looking at. Managers need to establish performance standards, targets for your staff. If you're in a situation where you can, it's always good to be able to provide, you know, if you reach this target, if you reach this goal, you get this prize. You know, whether it's lunch on me, whether it's half a day off, you know, whatever it may be. And it may be something that the employee is able to kind of tell you some ideas of what they would like. Hey, if I get there, can I get this, you know, or whatever. So once you set up benchmarks and targets, you need to have some motivation for the employees to reach those. Otherwise, what's the point? Kind of, you know what I mean? Other than discipline is not a good motivator for someone to reach a benchmark or a target. You know, the threat of failure and consequences doesn't work nearly as much as if you do reach these goals for the next 6 months, then you'll get $1 an hour raise. You know, you won't be, as a first line manager, you would not have the ability to make that choice, but you would have the ability to go on your employees' behalf to the next level of management and say, hey, Tom has been doing awesome. He has done everything I've asked. 6 months ago, I asked him to start doing this. He's done it every day. I'd love to see him get an increase in pay if that's possible. So it's your job as a manager, because you're seeing exactly what's happening every day with your employees, to go to the next level of management and ask for things like that. So if you're going to set targets, you're going to set performance standards and benchmarks, you have to evaluate and measure the progress of whether or not they're getting there or not. Otherwise, what is the point of, you know, setting standards for performance? I think that performance appraisals are very important. I think it's something that should be done. I think not only do I think they should be done, I think they should have a direct correlation with pay, with moving up the ranks. If performance appraisals are done and they don't account for anything, then they really don't matter. But performance appraisals kind of fit in this stage of evaluating and measuring progress. You know, you look every 6 months or every year, you're going to have something where you're doing a performance appraisal. So what sort of resources would a first line manager be having to manage. You have to manage physical resources, technological resources, financial resources, and human resources. They're all very important. The one that you hear about people having the most issue with and getting in trouble over are the financial resources. If you are in charge of money at a facility, that money needs to be going where it's supposed to be going. Otherwise, you'll be in the newspaper for putting that money in your pocket. So, not that I think any of y'all would do that. I'm just saying the financial side, not only will you be tracking it, but there will be other people tracking that, because no matter where you work, people care about the money. This stuff is a business. Something that you have to watch out for, not just for your employees as a manager, but for even with yourself, is, you're going to have cases of stress and you're going to have cases of burnout. So you have to try to avoid burnout for sure. Stress is something that, okay, for you guys, is that a definite negative connotation for that word? Is it always negative? Or does sometimes, okay, I'll use myself for an example. Yes, stress has a negative connotation for the general public, like when you hear that word. But I work my best when, I don't want to say procrastinate, but like if I haven't had a chance to, if I'm getting down to a deadline, I am able to like laser focus, get it done. And let me tell you, while I'm doing that, I am stressed. But stress leads to results for me in a work setting. Stress is, of course, read the bottom on the stress side there. It may kill me prematurely, but it makes me work effectively. So that, there's a trade-off there at least. And on the stress side, you're just feeling overly engaged, overly involved. You may be overreactive. You might be hyperactive. You are possibly going to see loss of energy. You have physical damage where you're talking about your heart beating fast, you're stressed, you're feeling anxious, things like that. And that's the physical side, is where it plays into the next one, where it may kill you prematurely. Burnout is a whole different game. Burnout a lot of times come from excessive, prolonged periods of stress in a job can lead to burnout. Like right now, I'm on the contact tracing team, and I'm teaching 4 live classes and over internships this semester. So I've added a class and the contact tracing team. And right now, I can tell you I am extremely stressed, and I see it in the evenings. I get home, I'm shorter with my kids, because I can't catch up. And so I definitely see the stress side. If I have to keep doing the contact tracing and all of this stuff the way that I'm doing it right now, it could push me towards this burnout phase on the next step. If I had if this kept going, I couldn't go at the rate I'm going right now long term without hitting burnout. So in burnout, you reach a point where it's like, I don't care. You just feel disengaged. The stress that you had to meet the goals and get things done just kind of leaves. You're just kind of like, whatever. You can be sharp and blunt responses to people, which that is in line with stress. You might feel helplessness and hopelessness. I'm not at a burnout level or anything like that, but right now I feel like I can't catch up with the contact tracing that I'm doing. Between prepping for classes, teaching the classes, and then in between, if I'm not grading something or prepping for another class, I'm trying to call somebody on the phone. And then by the time I get back from another class, I have 3 more people on my list that I'm supposed to call who are going to have contact. So there's that. I'm starting to have some feelings of number 3 on burnout. A little bit of helplessness and hopelessness, like, okay, not going to catch up. So I'm at this point, what's keeping me from reaching the burnout stage and lowering my stress level is I have said to myself and have been told by people above me even, hey, y'all just don't let yourself get overwhelmed. Just do what you can do. Do it at the pace you can handle. So if I need to go pick up my kid from school at 5 o'clock and I'm in the middle of contact tracing, I just put it away for the day and go get him and wait. So that's keeping me sane right now and keeping me from going to the burnout phase. Once you hit burnout, you're going to see loss of motivation, ideals, and hope. I think that's a little bit dramatic, the way some of this is written. I've been what I would call burnout before, but I didn't really lose hope. It just seems a little strong to me. The primary damage on burnout is emotional rather than with stress, it's physical. And in burnout, it says it may make life seem not worth living. Let me tell you, that is some serious burnout right there. And your employment and your job is extraordinarily important. Don't get me wrong. But if your job is making life seem not worth living, then I think that's getting beyond burnout to me. That's next level burnout. So what do the top managers, you remember that intricate drawing we have with the triangle, what will the managers above you expect of you as a first line manager? They'll be looking for you to deliver projects and programs, number 1, on time, number 2, within budget. You should probably switch those numbers if you want to be quite honest in the real world. Deliver projects and programs within budget and on time. They're going to be upset with you if you're constantly blowing the budget. They want you to support the goals and objectives of senior management, which is, top-down leadership. They want you as a first-line manager to buy in to the ideals of the team. They expect you to communicate plans, programs, and priorities to the work staff that you oversee and keep them informed about the organization. So if you get, say, if there's a housekeeping email about how everyone's going to clock in and out each day, how they're going to keep up with their hours, upper management is not going to necessarily send that information out to every employee. What they're going to do is send that down to you, and you're going to be expected to communicate that as a first line manager to the individuals that you are overseeing. So that's kind of how, that communication should take place. Communicate the work group's projects, accomplishments, and challenges to the upper management. So this is important. You're going and saying, okay, this is something we've decided to do. You're telling the management above you. You're giving testimony of how your employees are doing a good job, what you're doing to get things done. So this is kind of a morale boost for your staff. If they feel like you're going to bat for them, you're going up to the next level and saying, hey, this is what we're doing, and you're actually telling upper management how it's being done effectively, then they're going to work better for you if they know they're being represented by you. Identify strategies for increased efficiency. So in there, you're just looking, how can we improve what we're doing, bottom line. So, expectations of first line managers. There's some parallels on this slide when you're looking at it between good management and like good implementation of recreation therapy plans, if you think about it. That starts off right there on the first one. Identify realistic and attainable goals and standards. You know, we've talked about how you want goals to be realistic. You want goals to be reachable, because if they're not, that's what does that do to morale? Whether it's your client in recreation therapy who can't reach a goal, they're not going to be motivated to come and participate, nor will they feel good about themselves when they leave. Same thing for your team as a first line manager. You want to set goals that are actually attainable and reachable. You're expected to communicate about work assignments, schedules, and decisions that are going to directly affect your staff. Another important one that is, I put a star by when I was looking at this stuff, and this goes along with recreation therapy as well, as a practitioner. Think about how we talked about when we're doing IPPs and planning for the individual students. How do we make them buy into what you're doing? How do you get them excited about what they're doing? You get them involved in the decision-making process of what you're going to do. So you ask them, what do you like to do? You know, if someone feels like they have input into what they're doing, then they're going to be far more likely to be willing participants, to be successful in what you're doing. Again, represent the staff to upper management. If someone that works for you has an issue but is not comfortable going to upper management, and there may be a hierarchy, you know, the way that the company works, that they're not supposed to go to that next level. It's your job to take grievances, to take questions up to that next level and represent your people. Another thing that will make them buy into you as a first line manager is if you are truly representing them to the next level of management. Provide rationale for decisions and direction. That's a situation where, to me, you know, with my 4-year-old, if I make a decision, you know, I can say, and he says, why? I can say, because I said so. Not the best way. As a manager, theoretically, if a employee asks you why, you could theoretically say, because I said so. What's that work environment going to be like? Garbage. You know, so you need to be prepared to give rationale for decisions and direction. You know, why are we doing this? Because you're going to be asked that, you know, especially today. Years ago, there was not as much questioning about things. If your boss told you to do this, you just did it. The overall environment of the world these days is more open to questioning why, you know, and bucking back a little bit if you're not comfortable with something. So be prepared in this first line manager position to tell people why. This is why we're doing it. This is why we made this decision. This is why we did this change. Provide fair and balanced feedback for your staff efforts and achievements. That's, like I say, in order to do that, you have to be present, you have to be involved, and you have to be actively watching them and what they're doing. Fair and balanced, important. Right there below, be fair, no favorites. Everybody is going to have favorites, no matter what setting you're in, no matter exactly what you're doing. When I was working at the regional center, I cared deeply for all of my clients that came through. When I was in the pool, running the aquatic therapy program there were certain ones that I particularly enjoyed working with in the pool. They were so much fun. I could see the results that they were getting from it. And there were some that if they call and say that they weren't coming that day because they had a dental appointment, I was like, yes, you have favorites, whether you want to or not. The key, though, is treating people with the same and giving them the same opportunities that you would give everybody. Now, inside, you may enjoy working with one person more than another, but when you're doing your feedback for your staff efforts, if you're doing yearly reviews or something like that, then you have to put that aside and look strictly at what is in front of you. Did they do it? Did they not? It's not, do I like them or do I not? For example, even on Blackboard, when we have to grade things as instructors on Blackboard, you can grade anonymously. And I think that's a great idea because it takes any bias out from the teacher, because even as a teacher, you have some students that are more involved. You're going to have some, quote, favorites per se. When you're grading anonymously, you can't subconsciously give somebody a little more credit for something than someone else. That's a perfect example of how that plays into even my situation. Very important. Listen and empathize sincerely as a first line manager. You're going to have people that come to you and say, hey, I got to be late tomorrow. My grandmother's sick. I'm the only person that can get her to the hospital. At that point, you can either throw a little hissy fit and say, well, what are we going to do? We're going to be short tomorrow now. A better route of going in that situation would be for you to say, you know what? You're just going to be an hour late. I'll come down and handle that first class for you. Let me know how she's doing when you get back. See the difference in morale that you're going to have in your department? It's just important. And lastly, you want to maintain a safe working environment. That's very, very important. And it plays, when I think about today's world, and I think about this location, I'm almost like a frontline manager for you guys. I'm your direct link, and if I see issues in my class, I will tell people above me, hey, I don't think we can socially distance in classroom 239 because whatever. We have worked to maintain a safe environment here, just like you would do in any work environment. But that's key. If you have a lot of incidents, a lot of accidents, then as a first line manager, you have to figure out why this is happening and correct that. Because otherwise that's an offense that won't fly with the next level of management. If you've got people getting hurt or sick on your watch, then it needs to be addressed. Y'all feel comfortable with first line management? That's pretty, I feel like it was relatively straightforward stuff. I feel like it's a lot of it that you should already know, but it's also, now remember, a good part of what this course is about, honestly, we've talked in the other recreation therapy minor courses that you've been in, and most of you have been through most of them. You know, we've gone through the assessment, we've gone through the planning and implementation, we've gone through evaluation and the steps and, you know, things like that. This one is telling you things, say, for the CTRS certification, someone who's wanting to sit for that. This is where you're going to get from some information about leadership that is on that test. It has to be included in the curriculum, and as someone who's interested in recreation therapy, you need to be able to be prepared, because if you get a CTRS certification, you very likely will step immediately into this first line manager at the very least. So it's a useful course. It may be a little less about how we deal with clients on the daily basis, but being a leader and manager in recreation therapy is a good thing and an important thing too, because you're molding an entire group. You know, if you're a good leader from there. Let's look at, for next class, it's a little bit dry-ish, but for next class, look at, read chapter 3. Everybody got their book yet? Not yet? Okay. Okay. Well, when it gets in, you're going to have to sit down and just read one day. I'll try to cover things well enough that you can still follow without reading it. Now, what you can do is take the time to look, and y'all go back after today and look at these chapter 2 review on the content area. You know, like I say, it's got review questions and things like that, and that brings everything together. This chapter 2 has 6 good, thorough questions about the things that we covered today. So read the chapters, come to class, and then go back over this stuff. And again, like I've normally done, we will review for tests. So you will be prepared as we test along the way. As we move forward, we will go start getting into some of the things we were talking about, like making some of these memorandums of understanding with other places. We'll have some days where we kind of do some in-class work together and not so much just me standing up here talking to you, but I want to get a jump on what's in the book up front and then do more of the activities a little later, because I want to make sure this stuff is covered because it's on the CTRS exam. Okay? So you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay safe. Don't get the Rona and make me call you. So y'all have a good day, and I'll see y'all Thursday.